to Real People, Real Matters. I am Diana Tulchinsky. This is my first guest, Keith Gerth, owner of Oil Lamp Theater in Glenview.
Thanks for the opportunity to come. I appreciate it.
Please tell me about your earlier life in Streator, Illinois.
Well, I grew up in Streator, Illinois, as you said, which is a very small town. It's such a small town that excitement for us was when McDonald's moved to town. That was sort of the, yeah, I know, it's a big deal for us, yeah. But it was a very small farming community, and I grew up there. I was born in 1963. I know,
changing environment.
A very long time ago, yeah. And I moved to Chicago for a job in accounting in '91. So it was a pretty big adjustment. I mean, it's a big change from the town I grew up in. And the theater, I definitely, the Oil Lamp Theater, Oil Lamp goes back to my childhood, because where I grew up, literally on the outskirts of town, we would lose power frequently. And the family, my mother has this amazing collection of antique oil lamps.
Oh, was that from your grandparents?
Some of them, yeah. And my mom just collected them during her lifetime. And so sometimes for days we would live with just the light of these oil lamps. And it was really a wonderful way. It would bring the family together in a very warm way. And so when I started the theater, I wanted to hearken back to that tradition, to the feeling of coming together as a community. And that's why in the theater yet today, in the lobby, we have 70 tea candles, and it's just very warm glow. And our goal is really that coming to the theater feels like a big hug. And it's just a very warm and inviting space. So very much back to my childhood.
Like, speaking of your childhood, what were your opportunities before you became an actor in like that high school era, or like that environment where you got to pick a job at 18 and stick with it for your life? That was in the 60s.
Yeah, being an actor where I grew up was not,
not
a thing, no. I always tell people that in my family's all German. We all came from Germany at the turn from the 18 to 1900s. And I always tell people that in my family, you're either a minister or a carpenter. Those are really the only two choices. And so I have a couple of brothers that are that are ministers or in religion. And then a couple of us are carpenters. That was the path I chose after high school. I was a carpenter. And I actually left school during the day and went to my carpentry job.
Was it like a vocational internship?
It was like a vocational internship, exactly. And so I went and worked with this guy, and he took me on as an apprentice. Was really my first work experience, and he was fantastic. I mean, he really helped me understand the importance of having a work ethic and doing a quality job. And it was, the beautiful thing about carpentry is it is artistic. You're creating something. And so even in those early years, I was definitely getting a better connection to my artistic side, even though it wasn't theater. And after that, it just became clear that I did that for 8 years.
Oh, so who inspired you, like in the mid-20s, to go to school and get a cubicle job?
Well, what inspired me to go to school was I realized I was probably going to die in Streator, Illinois, because there weren't any opportunities in that town. I mean, a carpenter is not a bad job, but I think for me, I had worked as a carpenter for 8 years, and it was important for me because when I went to school, I used all my savings to pay for college. So I was very anxious to get a job, to get out and get back in the workforce, because when you've spent all your savings on college, you need a job. And accounting is it appeals to my sense of order. Like everything always balances, it always works out.
The logic behind it.
Yeah, that's very logical, right? And so that appealed to that part of me. The part of me that auditing didn't appeal to was as I said before, sort of being a cop, being the person that's the enforcer and challenging people for doing things wrong. And I didn't like that part of it.
So where did you get your bachelor's, and how did you become a CPA again?
Yeah, so I got my bachelor's at Illinois State. Which was a great school. It was a great experience. I really enjoyed it. And I got my bachelor's there, and I was a history major originally because I loved history in high school. I thought it was great.
Do you want to teach or go into law school?
Well, there was the thing. People were like, because I was already in my late 20s, and they were like, what are you going to do with a history degree? You're going to have to be a professor. You're going to have to write. And they were like, that's going to be another 10 or 15 years before you're starting to make any money. And that didn't sound good to me. So someone suggested accounting, and I had never taken any accounting classes. So
How
I
is the
started taking them.
CPA of getting that with that Illinois normal
It's a pretty
diploma?
involved process getting your CPA. I mean, you have to take an exam that's pretty extensive. It's like a 3-day exam.
Is it 5 years to stay for?
It
the
is 5
exam?
years of college now. It was 4 when I went there, but they've expanded it. But I took tremendous experience away from that job. I stayed there 15 years at Deloitte, and it really was a great experience. It's taught me a lot, and it's taught me the importance of paying attention to the financial aspect of running a business. And I think in the arts, that's something that we really struggle with, because a lot of artists, as they come out of school, they have a theater degree or they have a degree in the arts, but they don't have a degree in business management. So they don't know how to sell their product. And I think that's a real challenge in the arts. A lot of theaters, you see today, a lot of theaters, just since we've moved here to Glenview, several theaters around the Chicago market have closed because of the financial pressures, because they didn't anticipate what was going on financially and couldn't react to that.
Were you flying and teaching how do people audit, or I have younger trainees?
Yes, well, that's how I got excited or interested in acting in the first place. Was the one thing when I decided I didn't want to be an auditor anymore. I was trying to figure out what profession I was going to go into. And when I looked at the work that I did as an auditor, the one aspect of it that I thought was really great was they would fly me around the country and I would teach other younger auditors how to be auditors. And these would be like 40-hour training exercises, right? How exciting, 40 hours of auditing, right?
Wow.
Sounds really exciting,
Yeah.
right?
So were you like the cop, or did?
Well, I guess, yeah. I mean, I was the one that would teach them how to do this, and I thought, and they really enjoyed the classes. And I would get great feedback, like you'd get an evaluation after the end of the week, and my evaluations were always fantastic. Like the people that ran the seminars, right? The people that ran the seminars were like, you've got to do this all the time because you get ratings that are like off the charts. And I realized that if I could make auditing that interesting on stage, I probably could make anything interesting. And that's when I started studying acting at Act One.
So were you using your condo at the time, like to get tickets, or opening it up? Or?
Well, so I started taking classes, and then over time, as you're taking classes, typically you want to go out and audition and try and get a role and get into a part somewhere. But in Chicago, a lot of the theater still today, and around the country for that matter, tends to be very dark, edgy, controversial. And that's not my style. I want to have an uplifting nature. So in everything we present, like the show that you had seen, there's always a redemptive element at the end of the play. So there's always a reason to be positive about being human. A lot of the plays that are out there today, it's like life is terrible, it's all bad.
What about the Glencoe, the Writers' Theater? I know that's pretty big, but how is that different?
That's what he likes. He likes the darker stuff. So when I met a friend of mine studying acting, and we were talking about going out and audition, and we both had the same feeling that there was a lot of dark material out there. So I said, well, why don't we just invite over some friends to my place, and we'll just do a show at my place. And so that's what we did. We had 100 actors come through the door to audition, and we put together an evening of one-act plays and invited over friends and family. And they loved it. And then they were like, what are you guys doing next? And we're like, next? There was no next. This was like a one-shot deal. But we kept on doing it.
Was it profitable for you getting that condo?
Profitable is a tricky word in the arts. I mean, I think it's a challenge trying to balance the resources and be able to. You have to make your choices about what you're going to prioritize. So I think getting into the arts is not about. It's a different model than a for-profit enterprise. And so there's different metrics as far as what is the definition of success. I would look at Oil Lamp in Glenview. We're a 60-seat theater, and yet we've entertained 30,000 people in a little over 3 years. That's pretty incredible.
As an actor, do you feel sometimes burnt out, or do you see like a lot of people you see, burnt out from trying to get that day job as an actor, or do you ever coach them to sway and get a permanent job and do acting on the side?
It's a tough environment for an actor. For an actor, the life of an actor is constantly living this cycle of life and death, right? Because it's you go out and audition, and then you hope you get cast. You don't know if you're going to get cast, so you are competing against all these other actors.
How do you make the ends and the rent, the mortgage?
Right. Well, then
that?
you hopefully you get the part, and then you get the job, and then you start rehearsing for that show. But while that show is rehearsing, you have to go out and audition for the show that's going to open after that show.
Yeah.
So they have a constant cycle of audition and be in a show, and then it's a very difficult environment. And unfortunately, a lot of theaters in Chicago pay next to nothing to their actors. You can pay more for parking at the theater you're going to see than the actors are getting paid on stage.
Do you give like
That's a
words of
problem.
encouragement also? Do you ever tell people you gotta pay the rent and support your family, or you gotta pick?
Yeah, I don't really. I try to stay out of sort of their because it's a tricky balance. There are actors that will ask for that kind of input, and I'll definitely offer insights to them. And we, as an organization, commit to paying all our artists. So we make that a priority that we pay the artists the best we can as an organization, because we think that's important. They should be compensated for the service they provide. And I think that's very important.
What studio in Chicago did you get your acting ability, or after your accountancy and
so I studied at a place called Act One Studios. They were on LaSalle Street. It was a great place to learn the skill of acting. Unfortunately, they're not there anymore, which is sad. Similar business challenges, they couldn't make it all work. But it was really a fantastic experience. I met some terrific people there. And I remember the first acting class I took. It's really amazing to think about it now, but I sat in the back of the room, literally with sitting on my hands, because I didn't want to raise my hands and volunteer.
Shyness?
Yeah, I was like tremendously shy. I was like, I'm not getting up there in front of all these people and doing anything. So it took me a long time to have the courage to get on stage.
So where were you in the Chicago scene, like in the 90s, and trying to make acting a profession? What area in Chicago were you living in?
Yeah, so I've lived in a lot of parts of Chicago over the years. I guess mostly Lincoln Park, but I've spent most of my time living in the suburbs, Carroll Stream, and then Northbrook. That's where I've lived mostly, and in the Wrigleyville area for a while. So when the theater was in Wrigleyville, I lived there. But most of the time I've been in the suburbs of Chicago, not in the main city itself.
Why did you choose like a place like Glenview instead of Glencoe or Deerfield or Winnetka? Why did you be in the middle of the North Shore area?
Well, being a CPA, of course, I put together a business plan when I decided to leave Wrigleyville and move. And we felt that it was really important to be near major transportation, have easy access to the theater. So my wife and I live in Northbrook. So we started in Morton Grove on the Metro line and went from station to station all the way up to Deerfield and looked at locations within blocks of the metro stations. The first place we looked at actually was downtown Northbrook. And we had a great meeting with the development people at Northbrook. We were interested in a property that was in downtown. And after about a half an hour of meeting with the people at Northbrook, they said, you know what, let's check something real quick. And they went out of the room and they came back with this big book, like about this thick, and they opened it up and they said, well, you know what, we don't allow live professional theater in Northbrook.
Oh, that is very disappointing.
It was disappointing. They were like, you know what, if you find a location, we'll fix it. And we were like, I don't know, I think we're gonna keep looking. So we found this location in downtown Glenview. And we walked in the door initially, and it had been empty for a couple of years. And my wife and I said to my wife, this is not going to happen. It was, oh my gosh, it was unbelievable. We have a video of what the space looked like when we walked in. It's taken a tremendous amount of TLC to get the place to where it is today. But it's been an awesome location, really fantastic, and the community has been amazing.
When did you meet your wife and...
So my wife and I, that's an interesting story. My wife and I met 16 years ago.
Oh, that's nice.
We actually met the day after 9/11.
Oh, wow. So was it a traumatic experience
It was,
for you both?
well, it was interesting. We met online.
J-Match or
We met through the Reader,
the Reader?
and we both had posted ads. And I had posted a couple different ads over a couple of months that were not really working out. The people I was meeting, it wasn't working out. So I decided to write an ad that was completely honest. How bold of me, right? So my ad said things like, I'm the kind of guy that loves to sit by the fireplace and read a good book with someone and enjoy a glass of wine, and I enjoy my subscription to Martha Stewart Living.
Oh, it's snazzy.
See, look at that.
Yeah.
So that very much appealed to my wife and her sisters. They were like, wow, this guy is so aware and all that. And so we met, like I said, the day after 9/11, and it was ironic because we had actually been working across the street from each other for 10 years.
Was
but never
Deloitte and
met.
Touche affected by that, or were you affected in the business or anything like that?
It definitely had an impact on, like it did in every business in the United States. I mean, it definitely affected, because New York for us was the center of the organization.
The financial world.
The financial
yeah.
world and our offices. We have a huge office in New York. So it definitely impacted us as an organization, just because the communication and being able to just move people around the country was tough when New York was off the grid. That's a difficult situation. So it was a challenge for the organization for sure. But the one thing about that organization that was always great is the people would always rally behind. Like when Katrina happened in New Orleans, the rest of the country, the organization would pull together and try and help the people that lived in Louisiana at the time. So it's a great organization to be supportive of each other.
How do you like the local Glenview high schools? I mean, do you ever hire any like as a vocational, like to hang out or
well, the high schools?
reception?
I mean, the high schools are a big reason we're here. I think one thing, our three daughters went through the Glenbrook North, through the whole school system there in Northbrook.
Okay.
So we're very familiar with the school systems here in town. And we would go to the V shows or to the musicals that the high schools would produce. And they're unbelievable spectacles. If you've not seen the shows at the high schools, you should check them out. I mean, they are amazing spectacles. Their lighting system far outweighs my lighting systems. It's amazing.
Did you get any ideas for the show, or did you pick up young talent? From
Yeah,
that?
we haven't really done anything along those lines. Most of the people we have on stage are older, so we don't have lots of opportunities for children. There's so much children's theater out here that we don't want to compete with all those children's theaters. There's just too many of them. And I don't know how I could differentiate myself from the other, dozen children's theaters that are out here already. So,
as a parent or like as a role model, and like in different stages of your life, do you have any high school tips for seniors looking for junior colleges, for math majors, for acting, for arts? Like, where are the warning signs from the programs to good, or is too much for a kid?
Yeah, I think, my advice would be that I think you need to try and find your own voice. I think that's what's most important. And I think when you're looking for a school or even a vocation for that matter, I think the key is to find that part of you that's going to make you sing the most.
Oh, yes.
And for me, I think looking back on the various careers I've had, whether it was carpentry or auditing or whatever the experience was, those were all pieces to a puzzle that make me successful in what I'm doing today. So I needed the carpentry experience because today I still, the next 48 hours I'm going to be building sets and getting ready for the next show.
And you have such a strong work ethic, getting up and then doing the social media.
Right. So it's very important to, I think, figure out for you what seems most appealing, what you really want to do, what really gets you excited, and pursue that and not let other people say to you, that's not something you should pursue, that's not, like my family, for example, when I told them I was going to go into acting, they were not particularly thrilled about that. I mean, it's
no.
right. It's seen as unstable. It's not but I think it's important you get one shot at life, and you got to do what you really find exciting and passionate.
What is your family doing now, and your daughters and their plans?
Well, we've got our last daughter just left for college, so it's been
young.
pretty exciting. Yeah, it's exciting. We have the house back, so it's been fun. But no, it's been very exciting. We've had a tremendous year in our family. We've had a wedding, 2 graduations. I mean, it's really been an amazing year. And like I said, the last daughter just left for school at Duke. So we've had a very exciting year. It's been a lot of transitions for the family. So there's a lot of excitement.
What are your endeavors for Oil and Lamp? Do you ever think about expanding or doing something different for the settings? And
yeah, I think it's, as far as Oil Lamp and our long-term plan, I think we've got a lot of growing to do within the space that we're in. Even though we're a 60-seat theater, we have a lot of room in our calendar to grow, so we can add a lot more performances. And there are things we do beyond the physical boundaries of the theater. So we have a program that we call On the Road, which is where we take our artistic work to various locations around the Chicago metro area.
You promote those scenes.
Yes, yes. So, I mean, we'll perform quite frequently at the Glenview Public Library, or just a couple weeks ago we were at the Evanston Public Library.
What about the North Shore Senior Center?
And we were there. They are fantastic. I mean, that's probably our biggest crowd that we ever performed. They have a couple hundred people that come see us in that performance, and they've been fantastic. So going around to those locations expands the theater's outreach beyond just our physical space. So there are limitations with our physical space. You know, we're 2 storefront theaters put together, so there's really no room for us to grow physically. But we have a lot of opportunity as far as what we can do beyond the theater, as well as just even with our own calendar. Because right now we are there Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights at 8, and Sundays for a 3 o'clock matinee. So there's a lot more opportunity within the calendar to have performances. Writers, for example, that you mentioned, they run 6 days a week. So they have a lot more performances than we do. So
and the tickets it's more of a political tone. That's what I remember that.
Yeah.
And what are your upcoming plays? What are you doing for the elections? Any kickoffs?
So we have our upcoming play for the election opens a week from Thursday on October 6th, and it's called 44 Plays for 44 Presidents. So in 90 minutes, we cover all 44 of the presidents. It's a pretty quick romp through U.S. history, but it's really fun. It's presented in a lot of different mediums. So there's some dance elements, some musical elements. It's not just a history of, like oration and just telling these stories, but it's more about the characters of who these people were. So it's really a fun play. It's our best-selling show ever as far as advanced ticket sales. So I think it's going to be popular.
Where's your location? All of Glenview. Where are you guys located?
So we are right in the hotbed of downtown Glenview. We are 3 blocks east of the Glenview Public Library, or the Metro train station, right by Waukegan and Glenview roads.
Ah, that's nice.
There's free parking all around the theater.
And do you get cookies or anything?
We
like
have
that?
complimentary cookies at every show. It's our #1 sales item, yes. It's meant to be a really warm, fun atmosphere. And for fall, we have spiced warm apple cider at every show.
Oh,
And
thank
then
you, Keith.
for the holiday show, we have hot chocolate.
Wow. So BYOB.
And it's BYOB, so you can bring whatever you want to add to your hot chocolate or to your spiced apple cider.
Thank you, Keith, for this wonderful conversation about Oil and Lamp.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's been great to talk with you as well.
Thank you for watching Real People, Real Matters with Diana Tulchinsky. Please watch us again.